Hello everyone, welcome to the Artistic Atom channel. I am Fatima and today I am going to take you through an amazing adventure where we will be discussing about different lab apparatus. For this particular presentation, I have used the reference book as Oxford University Press. And this is the part 1 of the lab apparatus session. I am going to make another part where I will be including the rest of the apparatus. So let's see what all are the points that we are supposed to cover in this particular session. So here, whenever we will be discussing any of the apparatus, we will be considering these 4 points. First is we will be understanding what is the exact name of that apparatus, what it exactly looks like, and the diagram, how you're supposed to draw it in exams. Lastly, the uses, where exactly we use it in the lab. The first apparatus that we are going to discuss is the test tube. So this is how actually a test tube looks like. It has a cylindrical body and a hemispherical bottom and a circular opening. Now it has certain features. Like for example, whenever the volume of these particular test tube varies between 10 ml to 15 ml. So if the volume is less than that or more than that, you will not call it as a test tube. We have other names for those. Now always remember that we do have test tube which are of the volume less than that of the 10 ml, but they are used for micro testing level, like when we have very small scale reactions, very small scale reaction, especially in case of microbiology labs. So since we do not use it in our laboratory that we have in our school, that's why I'm not mentioning those test tubes over here. Now, the material with which they are made up of is nothing but a glass material. Now, they use a special kind of glass which is called as borosilicate glass. Its ability is to withstand with high temperatures. So, hence, if you have a test tube, you can actually heat it under the flame because it is not going to break. But always remember that the test tube is made up of thin borosilicate glass. So, if you heat it strongly, it is going to break. Now, the next point is always remember that in your exam, you're going to draw a test tube like this, a little bit thinner, because the next test tube that we are going to discuss, actually, it is not a test tube, it is a boiling tube that we are going to discuss, is quite thicker than that of this one. So, make sure to reduce the width of this particular test tube. And also remember to label the diagram exactly below the diagram, because if you're not labeling, without the labeling, the diagram will not be considered for granting marks. Let's move ahead and see what are the different uses for exactly what purpose we use this test tube. So test tube is usually used to heating liquids or some kind of solids. Since it has a thin coating of borosilicate glass, just for mild heating we can use it. Next is we can also use it to mix different substances. And since it has a clear, legibility, we can easily see the color change or whatever are the different observations that we wanted to see into that particular chemical reaction that is being happening after the mixing of these two chemicals. So it is ideal to use test tube when you're carrying out small scale reactions. Why? Because it avoids wastage of huge amount of chemical and it is a green method. Hence, we use small test tubes. Now, we also use it to carry out small scale chemical reactions. Since it has small volume, we do not waste a lot of chemicals. Now, let's move ahead to the next apparatus. It is nothing but a boiling tube. As I told you earlier, this is how actually a boiling tube looks like. Isn't it much thicker than that of the test tube? Yes, it is. Why? Because in case of boiling tube, the most important difference is that the volume of boiling tube ranges from 25 ml to 50 ml, which is quite larger than that of the test tube. Since it has larger volume, we can carry out reactions where we require huge amount of reactants. So it is suitable for such reactions where we need more amount of reactants and we will be ending up with more amount of product. It is also made up of borosilicate glass, but this time the thickening of this particular boiling tube is much more than that of the test tube. Hence, it can withstand with the boiling temperature, which is quite higher than that of the mild heating temperature. So it will not break at higher temperatures. It will withstand. Now let's see how you're supposed to draw it in exam. As you can see in this particular diagram, it is much more thicker or wider than that of the test tube. So make sure to draw it wider, because if you're not going to draw it wider, it will be considered as the test tube, not a boiling tube. And make sure to label the diagram exactly below where you have drawn it. Nextly, we are going to see what are the exact uses for what we use a boiling tube. So mostly we use boiling tube to heat strongly, like when we wanted to boil a substance. So in that case, we will be using boiling tube, not a test tube. And also, wherever we need a huge amount of reactant and a product, there we are going to use a boiling tube because it has huge capacity. So it can actually accommodate that much reactant and also the product that is going to form. The next thing that we are going to discuss is the exact key differences between the test tube and the boiling tube. So here I have actually summarized all the differences in the form of a table so that you will be able to keep a track of the exact difference between both the apparatus. So since test tube is smaller in size, it has thin glass and it can withstand with a mild heating, not strong heating. We can use it for holding and mixing or heating small substances. The volume varies between 10 to 15 ml, and we can use it for observing reactions and mixing chemicals. Whereas for boiling tube, it has larger and wider area. It has a thicker glass, hence it can withstand with strong heating, and also it can be used for boiling and heating substances strongly. The volume ranges between 25 to 50 ml, and it is used for boiling liquids and for strong heating. So without any doubt, you can use boiling tube for boiling and test tube for carrying out small scale reactions. Now let's move ahead, where we'll be discussing about another apparatus, that is a beaker. This is how actually a beaker looks like. As you can see over here, we have a cylindrical body of this particular beaker and a flat bottom, a wide open mouth along with a spout. Now, since it has a wide open mouth, it is easy or ideal for stirring, mixing substances. Along with this, it is ideal for pouring. Why? Because it has a spout which helps in pouring the liquid without spilling. And here are the features for this particular beaker. So as I told you, it has a wide open mouth, spout to pour the liquids without spilling. It is also made up of borosilicate glass, hence it can also withstand with the temperature. So you can heat the beaker. Now beakers are available in two materials. First is plastic and another one is for glass, which is nothing but borosilicate. Now plastic ones you cannot heat it because it is made up of plastic. Those beakers are just for measuring and mixing, not for heating. Whereas you can use the glass beakers for heating. Now, as you can see over here, it has marking which indicates that it has graduations, because whenever you have the exact marking of the volume for any of the apparatus, you will call it as what? Graduated apparatus, because it has the markings. Those markings are in itself called as graduations, and it helps us to understand what is the exact amount of the substance present inside the beaker. As I told you, it is made up of borosilicate glass. It is heat resistant. Now, you're supposed to understand how you're going to draw it in exam. This is what the structure of a beaker looks like, and you're supposed to draw it in this way only. Make sure to label it exactly below the diagram in order to make it ideal for granting complete marks. Now the next is, let's understand where exactly we use a beaker. So beaker is ideal for heating solutions. As I told you, the different features which makes it perfect for heating. And secondly, it is also used for mixing. Since it is clear and we have marking graduations, we know what amount of the chemicals we are mixing exactly in it. So it is very ideal for mixing substances. Lastly, we are going to understand another apparatus, that is conical flask. This is how actually a conical flask looks like, and these are the features. As you can see, this conical flask has a wide body at the bottom and a narrow neck at the top. So this narrow neck makes it easy for hold it in hand and swirl it, and it has a flat bottom so that we can easily keep it on the surface. Now, as you can see, it has a small narrow opening, but there is no spout. Hence, it is easy for mixing, but we can pour liquids through it. But yes, since it is not having presence of spout, it is a little difficult. Somewhat few drops of liquid may spill out, but not more. Now it also has graduations, as you can see, as like beaker. Hence we know the exact amount of liquid that we are adding into this particular conical flask. The size of the conical flask varies between 50 ml to 1000 ml depending upon the need in the laboratory. Now the next is, since it is also made up of borosilicate glass, it is also heat resistant. And here's how you're supposed to draw it in exam. Make sure to label the diagram exactly below. Now let's understand what are the uses of conical flask. So we also use this conical flask for heating. Since it is made up of borosilicate, it's easy for us to heat the substance inside the conical flask. Also, we can use it for mixing. As you can see in the burette, I have one liquid, and in the conical flask, I have another. So what I'm doing, I'm adding liquid one from this particular burette to the conical flask, and since I have to swirl the liquid, I have presence of this neck, which makes it easy for me to hold the conical flask easily and swirl it properly, which makes it easy for mixing substances. Now let's understand a brainstorming question. What is it if both a beaker and a conical flask are used for mixing and heating? Yes, we have seen this. So then what do we need to have? Why do we need to have different apparatus? Why can't we just use one for all the experiment? Isn't it the exact question that was actually hitting your mind? Yes. The reason behind is this: the shape, because the conical flask and beaker, they both have the same usage like mixing and heating, but the shape serves a different purpose. What exactly the difference between them? Since beaker has a wide opening, it is easy for pouring, stirring, while in case of a chemical flask, conical flask, it has a narrow neck. Since it has a narrow neck, it is better for swirling liquid safely, and since we swirl it easily, there are no chances of spilling of the liquid. So in case of beaker, we cannot swirl it because of wide opening, the liquid may spill out. But in case of conical flask, since it is having a narrow opening and a long neck or narrow neck, it makes it easy for us to swirl the liquid without spilling. Isn't it a easy point to remember what is the exact difference between the two apparatus? Hope you have understood. Now the next apparatus that we're going to learn is a funnel. Now funnel is this. This is how actually it looks like. Now when we talk about funnel, these are the features. It has a wide open circular mouth, and it tapers down and makes a narrow tube. This narrow tube is called as the stem. And always this stem is, end exactly at a certain angle. Why? What's the reason behind making it at a certain angle? The reason behind is to get the each and every drop of a liquid that you're going to pour inside it. If suppose there is a circular end, not an angular end, what will happen in case of circular end? The drop will go and the last drop will go and stuck over there. Hence we will not get the last drop from that particular solution, because it also makes a difference. Now the next point is, this is also made up of glass, and you will also find in plastic material depending upon the need. Now the next is there are different sizes available in the market depending upon the various containers or the tubes in which you're going to put. So if you have a wider container, you will get a wider funnel. If you have a smaller container, you will get a smaller funnel. Now in exam, you're going to draw it in this way. Always make sure to draw this line a little bit longer than that of this line. As I told you, it will help us in taking each and every single drop of the liquid that we are going to filter out of it. Now next is, we are going to understand the two types of funnel. So the funnels are broadly classified into two types. First is the powder funnel. Second one is the filter funnel. Powder funnel is usually used to transfer the powder or the solid substances from one container to another, whereas filter funnel is used to separate a solid which is not dissolved in a liquid completely using a filter funnel. So as you can see over here, I am able to separate the solid which was not dissolved in the liquid, and I'm able to separate that liquid as well. So these are the two types of funnel. But for now, we are not interested in powder funnel. We are going to learn in depth about the filter funnel. Let's go ahead. So here is the actual arrangement of the apparatus when you're carrying out filtration process. Now there are different vocabularies which are involved in the filtration process. Firstly, let's understand how we are supposed to arrange the setup. So you need a stand with a clamp. Along with that, you need a container. It can be a beaker or it can be a conical flask. Or above that, you're going to put your funnel. Now inside the funnel, make sure to put a filter paper. What is a filter paper? It is a paper with the different variety of porosity depending upon the size of the solid. So if you have a smaller solid particles, you're going to use a fine small spore filter paper. If you have a huge size of the particles, you're going to use the bigger pore size filter paper. And then nextly, we are going to use a glass rod. It makes it easy to transfer the liquid exactly inside the funnel without losing a single drop. And inside the beaker, we have our mixture of solid and liquid. That solid is insoluble, hence we are trying to separate it from that particular liquid. So once we pour the liquid mixture completely into the funnel, slowly and steadily, with the help of gravity, the liquid comes out of the funnel and it gets collected into the conical flask or whatever is the container that you have kept exactly below the funnel. And whatever is the solid, it remains at the top of the filter paper. Now, whatever is the solid which remains is called as the residue. Remember this keyword. It is very important in carrying out filtration process. And whatever is the liquid inside the conical flask is called as the filtrate. So this is how actually the whole setup looks like. The most important vocabulary to remember is this. That is the residue and the filtrate. Residue is the solid remains, wherever filtrate is the liquid remains inside the conical flask. I hope you have understood the whole process of filtration very well. Now let's move ahead and understand the next apparatus, that is evaporating dish. This is how actually an evaporating dish looks like, and these are the features. As you can see, the evaporating dish has a wide opening and also it has a small spout over here so that we can transfer the liquid without spilling it. Now this is also made up of a material called as porcelain. Now this is a type of borosilicate glass which makes it heat resistant. So it can withstand with higher temperature than that of the boiling tube. So if you have to carry out evaporation and you have to heat it for long time, evaporating dish is ideal. Now, since it has a broad surface area, it allows to carry out evaporation quickly, because we know that wide surface area, evaporation is faster, small surface area, evaporation is slower. Now, the next is it has a non-porous surface. As you can see, even if you have it in your hand, once you go and check it in your lab, there are no pores inside the surface of this particular evaporating dish, which allows it to remain or prevent the stains or the absorption of the chemicals inside it. Because suppose if there are pores, it is going to absorb the chemical that we have added inside it, and when we are carrying out next reaction, we will end up with impurities in it. So the material is non-porous. Now in your exam, you're going to draw evaporating dish in this way. Isn't it easy to draw? And also make sure to label it exactly below the diagram. Now let's understand for what we use it. So when before understanding the usage, let's understand how to arrange it or how to arrange the whole apparatus. So the setup is exactly like this. So what you're going to do, you're going to put a burner exactly below, which provides the heat source to the system. Now is called as, this stand is called as a tripod stand. Since it has three legs, we call it as a tripod stand. And this one, this thing, as you can see below the porcelain dish or evaporating dish, we call it as a triangle. So why are we using this triangle? Since our evaporating dish is smaller than that of the tripod stand, if we keep it over this, it will fall. So we need something to hold it exactly above the flame. So we use this triangle. So if your evaporating dish is bigger in size, there is no need of yours to use triangle. You can directly keep it on tripod stand. Now, as soon as we heat this mixture, slowly and steadily, this will gain energy. These all particles will gain energy. And as soon as they gain energy and they have wider surface area, the rate of evaporation will increase. And as the rate of evaporation will increase slowly and steadily, the whole solution will evaporate and you will end up with the solid at the bottom. This is how you will be able to separate the solid from the liquid. So exact uses to separate a liquid from a solution. And also you can, suppose if there is no solid remains, you just wanted to concentrate the liquid, that is you just wanted to remove the water, then also you can use evaporating dish. So when you heat it, most of the water vapors will come out and you will end up with a concentrated solution. Now, nextly, we will be understanding the apparatus. This is the last apparatus for this particular session. It is a condenser. As you can see in the image, this is how a condenser looks like. Now, when we talk about this particular condenser, it has two openings, this one and this one. So this end is called as the outlet end because through this the liquid comes out which we collect, and this is called as the inlet end. Through this the steam enters and passes through the condenser. Now as you can see inside this long tube, we have two tubes present. One is the inner and another one is the outer. This is called as the inner tube and this one is called as the outer tube. This outer tube is also called as the water jacket. Why? Because there is continuous flow of the cold water. This cold water allows the steam inside this particular inner tube to cools down, and slowly and steadily that cooled steam will get converted into liquid and starts condensing, and then we can collect that particular liquid in another container. Now as you can see here, we have two um, uh, openings or the entry points. So this one is called as the water inlet and this one is called as the water outlet. Sometimes students get confused which one to call as the inlet or outlet. So there is this trick that you can with which you can remember. So OT, always remember OT. That is the outlet is the top part. So when you're holding your condenser in your hand, remember that the top one is your outlet. Now, nextly, this is how you're going to draw it in your exam. So make sure to draw inner tube and then this is outer tube, which is having two connections. One is going to the inlet and another one is going to the outlet. Outlet is always, the outlet pipe is always going into the sink because that hot water has to go out of the system. And inlet is connected to the tap through which there is continuous entry of the cold water. Hope you have understood what is the exact condenser looks like. Now we are going to understand the uses. As you can see in this particular setup, I have attached a condenser. So here I have attached the inlet and outlets also. See what happens as soon as the liquid inside this particular container heats up, the liquid, because it consists of two liquids, okay, it's a mixture of liquids. What we wanted to do using this particular condenser, we wanted to separate those liquids. So what will happen, suppose if one liquid is having a low boiling point and another one is having high boiling point. So when we start heating, the low boiling point liquid will evaporate and enters into the condenser. Since there is continuous flow of the cold water, these water vapors or the steam starts to condense. And as the steam starts to condense, it's get collected into the another container which we have attached over here. Now there is continuous entry of the cold water, and also there is continuous exit of the hot water to keep this particular condenser cool, so that there is continuous process of condensation that is going on. So until and unless the last water vapors enter this, we are not going to turn this Bunsen burner off. So this is how we use a condenser. So there are four important steps that you should remember. Always remember that cold water enters the condenser, which keeps the condenser cool. And then the steam entry happens. So as soon as the steam arrives, they starts to cool, and as soon as they starts to cool, finally they get collected. So this is how condenser works. So the use is to cool the substances in the gas state so that it condenses to the liquid state, which we can later collect. So with this we have completed all the apparatus in this particular session. Now there is a conclusion. So since we have learned about an evaporating dish and also about the condenser, let's conclude the concept. So always remember that evaporating dish always converts liquid to steam, and the condenser always converts steam to liquid. So this is the exact point of difference between the evaporating dish and the condenser. Hope you have understood it very well. Now here I have given you two questions. So this is the first question. I want you all to read it carefully and try it by yourself. Do answer the answer in the comment section. If you have understood the whole presentation, you will be able to answer this question properly. And I'll be really happy to help you out with the correct answer in the comment section. So do comment. This one is the second question that I want you all to try by yourself. With this, we have completed our session 1 of Lab Apparatus Adventure. See you in the next session. Do like, share, and subscribe to my channel, Artistic Atom.